Yo, 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 what is up, party people? Welcome to another episode of Thrive and Dive. Thriving in life as we dive into deeper conversations. The purpose of this show is to have people on that I feel are thriving in life. And as we either dive into their stories or areas of expertise, our hope is that you can thrive in your life as well. And I'm joined by a full house today. I've got a big crew for the first time in a long time. Here we go. To my right, who's actually been on Thrive and Dive. Check out the episode if you haven't already. We've got the Nate Swearingen. How are you doing today, Nate?
Doing awesome. Back. This is like my third time. I'm feeling pretty pumped about it.
Third time's the charm. He's a regular at this point.
I feel like a professional.
Unfortunately, the person beside him has never been on before, but I'm sure it's just as good as Pastor Nate and the communication skills. And we have the Pastor Randy Miller. How are you doing today, Pastor Brandy?
I'm just peachy, thanks.
Cool, I love it.
Oh, peachy. Yeah. And then last but certainly not least, this individual has been on Thrive and Dive in the way back, and he's back on for another time. We have the JP Perfader.
I would think I was the last person on, or the first person on when you switched to it.
Yeah.
Not having its own channel.
Yeah, I had a channel before this where Thrive and Dive was birthed, and we did a new one, and JP was one of the first ones on this new channel with the old microphones, though, so it's not as super high quality. So
less of an audience, too, because they switched.
True.
Big following on
the other one went viral. Like, we'll put you on the other one.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, on the JV one. Yeah, but we are back, and super thankful you have tuned in with us. Just want you guys to get to know the people that are on Thrive and Dive today before we jump into some conversation. So if you already watched the episode of Nate's testimony, you've already got quite a bit of a backstory, but anything you feel you need to share, Pastor Nate, that Thrive and Divers need to know about you since last week?
No, I think they already know it all, so I'll give them a chance to share a little bit about themselves.
There you go, representing the Ohio State Buckeyes. That's always right. A faithful fan. Awesome.
Right on my heart.
Randy Miller, especially since this is your first time on Thrive and Dive, could be the first time people have seen you, unless they're members of Pathway Church or know you back from Ohio or something, or you sent this to your family. This is their first time seeing you and hearing you. What is some need-to-know information to share with them to get a full context of the Randy Miller?
If it's the first time they've seen me in a while, they're like, oh, my word. He's put on some weight.
That's random.
He's gotten older.
And he's gray. What happened to him? I'm married, just celebrated 30 years on March 5th earlier this year.
Yeah, that's a good day. That's a good day.
Thank you. Round of applause.
Jamie's awesome. We all married up, all of us that are married here so far. Sure. You will as well.
Yes.
God bless.
We know who you are out there.
Yeah, we're praying for you. Yeah, that's right.
If you're watching, my number is.
You'll be at the bottom.
Yeah. 3 grown kids, all married. We have 4 grandkids, and I've been in church ministry for nearly 30 years as well. Before that, I was in radio, so this isn't new to me, this kind of setup and feel and vibe. So just happy to be here. I'm in worship mostly, and just recently my roles transitioned to worship and care ministry at our church. And what that means is just caring for all demographics, visitation and benevolence and so on and so forth. Yeah, just caring for the people.
Love it. Yes. Love it. And Pastor Randy's been in ministry longer than me and JP has been alive. How about that?
Wow.
Fun fact.
Wow.
Let's go.
That felt great.
You're very experienced.
Do you feel encouraged?
Yeah.
I thought I was like a highlight. Not dig.
No, it was great. It was great.
Anyway, and then JP, since it's been a while since you've been on, give the Thrive and Divers a little information about you.
I'm the tech director here at Pathway Church. Been in the position for a few months now. I think it's going well anyway. I don't know if anybody else has a different opinion.
Yeah.
But
great.
yeah, I've been married for a little over 2.5 years. And things are going well there, and loving life. Love being here.
Sydney.
Yeah. Sydney. Oh yeah, my wife Sydney.
Yeah, give a shout out to Sydney.
Shout out
Sydney.
Yeah.
She's lovely. Yeah. Yep.
Awesome. Well, as you've heard from these short, brief introductions, we actually all work at the same place at Pathway Church. Shout out to Pathway Church. And I am blessed to know JP, Randy, and Nate. You guys kind of got some context of how Nate and I know each other. But actually, I've known Randy longer than I've known Nate. Actually, Randy has been in a pastoral position over me the longest in my life in terms of like tenure. Like you've been a pastor over me for the longest duration of time. So
Very cool.
shout out to Randy. Super thankful for him.
brother.
Yeah. And then JP, I got to know him when he interned at our church, and I was on the tech team as a volunteer.
That's
right.
And we bonded in the tech booth those early mornings.
Yeah.
And then he eventually came on staff or as a resident and then full-time on staff. And then I joined the staff after they were all here. And now we work together. So super thankful for them. I'm encouraged by them on a daily basis. And so today we're going to be talking about some different dynamics in terms of church ministry. Honestly, I'm not sure how many different directions this conversation will go. But if you've clicked on this, hopefully you're intrigued to know about some ministerial aspects of church life. We all hope you are a part of a church somewhere, whether you're here locally in Vero Beach or watching from abroad. I don't know what countries and states are represented in our viewership, but I would love for you to be plugged into a church. And so before we start maybe on the deeper end of the pool, I would love to hear from all three of you if you guys have a story on the top of your head of maybe one of the craziest church ministry experiences. Really anything is fair game that you feel willing to share. I feel like Pastor Nate already has an advantage because he works in youth ministry, and that's already crazy.
I could fill up the whole episode.
The whole episode of youth
and
ministry
some of them
stories.
you've been a part of.
This is true. This is true.
So-
So I would love to hear that. So maybe we could start with Pastor Nate since he might have some on the top of his head. And I know JP, you haven't been in you and me haven't been in the workforce that long, but I'm sure you might have a story or something that's crazy. And then Pastor Randy, in your 30 plus years of ministry experience, I'm sure there's something you've had to deal with. So over to you, Pastor Nate.
Yeah, well, there's so many stories we could tell. I think one of the craziest things is it's one of those things that's really not crazy, but the fact that you know that your job is on the line / parents are going to be pretty upset. This is years ago, first starting in ministry. It's been forever. And we did like an all-nighter at the church and everything. And so everybody kind of was doing their thing. Pretty good sized church. But obviously, it's in Ohio. There's a basement, which is kind of freaky, by the way. But when it was dark. But somehow some of the kids, they filled up the baptismal and they were swimming in the baptismal, which really can freak some people out. And so, there was a lot of upset people about that. You know, I really actually wasn't upset, so I jumped in with them, man. So, no, I'm just playing.
Give me that holy water.
I was like, cannonball.
I want to double dip in that.
Can't believe you guys didn't invite me.
Cannonball, water went in the pastor's office. It wasn't too now, but that was kind of crazy. There's so many stories, some that we can't share on here, for legal reasons, but no, there's so many things. But I think that's always like a funny thing to think about, how that happened, how that went down. But there's so many stories. But yes, man, all-nighters. Yeah, those are
Lock-ins.
Those are past me. I'm done with that. I'm passing those on to you
No,
now.
I'm glad we don't do those because as much as I love them as a student, they were a train wreck in terms of all the drama and destruction on the campus. So,
not even gonna. Yeah, there's so many stories that I have, of course, but that's something that's kind of crazy.
My question is, was there any old timers at the church that felt like we need to replace the baptismal pool because it's been desecrated by these youth? Like we got to get a new holy tub.
No, but definitely they said those kids actually really need to be baptized because of what they did. So I don't know. I don't even know where those kids are. Hopefully in heaven, but
They're dead already?
hopefully they'll get there.
Hopefully they're dead.
Yeah. So hopefully they will get there. They're like, oh yeah, we're taking you out. Yeah. Someday.
That's good to hear. If you're watching, we're glad you're alive.
Yeah, we'll put a disclaimer at the bottom.
Yeah.
So
Love it.
So
Pastor Andy, do you have a craziest ministry story on top of your head?
Well, this isn't my main story, but speaking of baptisms and baptismals, just quickly, not everybody adheres to the dress code all the time. So when they're coming up out of the water,
Oh boy.
yeah.
it's awkward for everybody.
Yeah.
Cover your eyes.
Especially if you're
Nice to
80
know you.
years old or older.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
But that wasn't my story. My story is more worship related since I'm a worship pastor. I learned early on as a worship pastor to not start singing a song if you don't have the confidence monitor, and what that is like the words, the lyrics somewhere where you can see them, especially if you don't have the song memorized. Yeah. And I remember thinking, man, the words aren't up, but I know the first line of this song. And so I sang the first line and then nothing.
Yeah.
And so the second thing you don't do as a worship pastor is try to start to remember and even make up lyrics as you're singing.
That's how you go viral.
And that's when I started to do that. But it was so long ago.
yeah,
no footage.
Nobody was recording.
No
it.
footage.
Yeah,
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
But I just made up like a limerick of some kind that I don't even know if it rhymed. Or
if it was
but it
theological.
was
Yeah.
It
You
was-
just said Jesus a couple times.
it was horrible. It
Yeah.
was horrible. And I was mortified. And we ended the song quickly, of course.
It was a short version of the song.
Man, I got just hammered for that.
Mm-hmm.
I just got relentlessly criticized for that moment. But yeah. So now I've learned not to do that anymore. If the lyrics don't come, I don't sing anything.
Oh, okay. That's what I was saying. Do you like bust out in like a hum? Like you just hum it?
No, you just don't do anything. You just
let it go. Let it ride.
some worship
Let it
leaders act
ride.
like they just
Oh, yeah.
they act like they're whatever. They're just in it, or whatever.
What if
or
it
they-
never
or they
comes
might
on?
pray. Or
Yeah.
they might pray.
Oh yeah.
They might pray.
That's good. Always segue with
Anyway.
the prayer.
Yeah,
Always.
good filler prayer.
Yeah,
not,
yeah.
not genuine
Yeah.
whatsoever, but a filler.
Yeah,
prayer.
yeah.
Yeah.
Lord, I hope you're hearing this filler prayer that I'm
Yeah.
praying because I don't know what else to do. Yeah.
Is there ever like if the confidence monitor doesn't come back on? What's you just
Well, you just you pray and you
the whole song?
and you pray.
Oh,
you conclude the worship set and you hand off to the pastor.
I got you.
Because the more you try to get all cute and I got this.
Yeah.
No.
Wow.
No.
There you go. There you go. JP, any crazy story, ministry story?
Oh man, there's one that sticks out. This is one of my biggest regrets. Oh my gosh. I think it was my first year here, like as a resident. I don't even think I was part-time staff yet, but it was Father's Day, 2023, and
Oh boy.
Oh, goodness.
Oh boy.
you already know.
Goodness.
I was doing audio for the live stream, and Randy was invited. Has just been. For those who don't know, Randy was adopted when he was a baby. Just had reconnected with both of his birth parents. So Pastor Brian invited Randy up on Father's Day to talk about that. I thought it was at the end of his message, at the end of Brian's message. It ended up at the beginning, and I had to go to the bathroom. Oh yeah.
And you were in production.
I
You
was
were-
in the production suite
Yeah.
mixing the stream, and the message started, and I said, I can't hold it anymore. I've got to go to the bathroom. And then about 2 minutes into me being there, I'm getting lit up. My phone is getting lit up. Where's the sound? Randy's on stage.
Oh.
It's an emotional story.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful story. It's a wonderful, wonderful, godly story.
Yeah. It was good.
Everybody missed it.
Everybody missed it.
So it
Yeah.
was,
Including you.
including me. And I will never, if I ever have to go to the bathroom again, I will unmute everything.
That's
Yeah.
what happened.
Yes.
My mic was muted.
His mic was muted, and I was in the bathroom, and I'm getting texts like, "Where's the sound? What's
Wow.
What's the sound?" And I obviously can't get up to fix the problem.
Yeah.
You're a little stuck.
Yeah. Going through some things.
Rock in a hard place.
Yeah.
And for those who missed that moment, he has since edited something together that had the whole thing.
Yes.
So if you ever want to see that.
There you go.
Yeah, it is out there. Yep.
Love it. Well, thanks, man. Especially Randy and JP telling on themselves
Yeah,
and their
you
stories.
gotta tell
That's
their
what's
stories.
up. That's what's up. You took complete ownership
Yeah.
of those mishaps, and now you can laugh about it now.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, for me, I don't know if there's one particular story that comes to mind. We had our middle school youth group the night before we were filming this, and two of our volunteers asked me, "Hey, do you have any crazy stories as one in youth ministry?" I'm like, I don't really have any currently from a youth leader's perspective, but I definitely have some when I was a student. That's
Yeah.
for sure. Some of the things that we will not mention names here that was done when I was a student was wild. We were talking even about the freshman initiation and your son's initiation.
Oh man. Yeah. Can you imagine stuff like that now?
That's the story or whatever.
Oh.
Oh my gosh, you guys
Man.
made him cry. I couldn't believe it. I was
Man.
brutal.
It may or may not have involved a state marshal or federal marshal.
We thought he was
It
getting
a federal
arrested,
marshal.
right?
Yeah, it was a
Oh,
federal
man.
marshal. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was brilliant. But my son was sobbing And then then other parents were like mad at us because how could you put your son through that?
Trauma.
Yeah. I was like, it was worth
He's
it.
all the stronger.
Yeah, it was worth a few $1,000s for counseling. Yeah, it was worth it. It paid
You
off.
still have the video?
Yeah, it's paid off.
We looked for it. We can't find it. We asked the people who took it and everything, and no one seems to know where it is. I don't know if it was they got rid of it on purpose.
They're like, yeah, we can't have that around.
Gotta scrub this.
But it's in my brain. It's in my mind.
Anything's worth a good laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you have it, folks. Church ministry is fun and crazy, and you'll learn a lot about yourself, and you'll humiliate yourself a lot. For
sure.
Don't take yourself too seriously if
Yeah,
you're going
that's
into ministry. That's for sure. While I have you guys here, since all of you guys work in a ministry capacity, I'd love to ask you guys some questions concerning ministry, and then you guys all have different perspectives coming from different departments, if you will. Obviously, we all work for the Big C Church, and our collective effort is to make disciples of the nations and bring people to Christ, but we do that differently given our areas and vantage points, so I love the diversity of maybe responses we're going to get here. Second question for you guys, moving from more of the fun side of the pool to the deeper side of the pool, if you will. Bring your floaties, JP. What is maybe from your department, the biggest kind of struggle that you have to deal with from congregants, without being specific and mentioning names or anything, not that you guys would do that, but like the number one issue you got to constantly address in your area? It could be comical, it could be more serious. I'll let you decide how deep you want to go, but how do you handle that from a ministerial position? Obviously, Pastor Randy, you guys are pastors, but though you're not a pastor, JP, myself as well, we still have to administer, spiritual authority at times. So, what is some of those number one issues, and how do you tackle them?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I don't know if I have enough time to think about it. I think it's a couple things that we see and that we deal with as far as on our end, and it's over the years. It's not necessarily where we are now or anything, but it's one, I would say it's kind of like that. Keep the youth over there, kind of keep the students over there. So you kind of have that crowd, and then you have another crowd that I'd say at times they're like, oh, we don't ever see them. And where are they at? And get them serving and stuff. And it's like, well, they are. You just maybe don't see them, wherever it is. They're serving in different areas, serving in kids, I don't know, whatever it could be. So I think that's some of the stuff that you, like, there's people that, like, don't want to see them. Then there's some that are on the extreme. They're like, never see them. I know that's kind of contradicting a little bit, but that's what happens. It seems like a lot. And so I think it's just to, like, try to, like, find a balance. Like, nope, we're going to all be involved, but yet they're doing their thing. There is a good space for them, but also like, hey, they're going to serve and be in places. So I see that a lot. Sometimes if they don't see them all the time, they don't think they're doing anything, and that's not true. We have this here, James. We've talked about it. We only go down it. Man, we got so many students that are serving the church, but also the community. We got some of the best, man. Right now, currently, truly, we just got some of the best. And our high school leadership team, we spoke about it before. They serve the middle school students in such just a wonderful way. It's some of the best that I've ever seen, and so we're really grateful. And over the years that we've been here, and over all my years, I've seen some great high school leadership teams and college leaders and stuff. So I think it's just that, like, the young people, this generation, there's that crowd, but then the other crowd of like, oh no, this generation is about to set this world on fire for the Lord. So it's awesome. So.
Yeah, and I think maybe even a common thread between not just the youth ministry, but maybe your guys as well, is people see what they see and they make a judgment based on that and just assume, oh, I don't see the youth serving, at this Easter egg thing or whatever, they must not be doing anything. These youth, oh my goodness, but they don't know some of the other things they're doing maybe behind the scenes 100%. Or something they're doing in a different ministry. Yep. And instead of maybe get on your high horse and saying, where are the youth? How about you come talk to the youth pastors and see, hey, are the youth involved, right? And if not, how can we get them plugged in? And just getting that extra layer of context before making a judgment call.
For sure. Yeah, that's good.
How do those people share those sentiments, those concerns, Nate? Does it come in an email? Does it come verbally? Does it come a phone call? How does that come to you? Or, you know what I mean? Because
I think it's like what James just said. It just depends. I think some people, it's just on their mind. So if they see you, they're like, oh, where are they at? Why didn't they go help with that? And it's like, okay, well, you're not everywhere.
Right.
Omnipresent. Yeah, you're not. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. You're not. But it's like, you're not, they're doing it. So a lot of times I'm just like, well, they are. They are serving. They are doing it. So yeah, it just depends. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it kind of depends on, I guess, the person, who they are. So over the years, that's what we've seen. So I think it's that balance of just like a weird thing. And I know, I'm repeating myself. There's a group of people, and we all could be guilty of it. That's like, oh man, those kids are too loud. And then we all were probably those kids at one time in our life. Every generation's had it. And it's like, oh man, this generation's just awful. And that's obviously not everybody. Then there's the other one, like, okay, I see this generation on fire. Let's do all we can to help them and everything. And so, yeah. So, and that sounds like, that we're complaining. We're not. It's just you asked a question. So,
yeah, no, absolutely. And that's what I want to dive into. And it's kind of interesting when it comes to like the youth ministry or just generational stuff in general. We make a lot of generalizations about a generation based on like one piece of evidence. It's just kind of funny. It's like there's so many more layers and nuance to a generation than what you're just maybe seeing during this season or whatnot. So for sure. Pastor Randy, what would you say in the worship and care ministry that you're a part of? You'd say some of your biggest issues or conflicts that you have to address.
Yeah, speaking of generalizations, I think that would be what I would have to do regarding worship ministry over the years. That's what I've been most involved in and served the most time with is leading people into the presence of God. And of course, we all know, spiritually speaking, theologically speaking, the Holy Spirit leads people to the Lord. The Holy Spirit fills the room, fills our hearts, fills the space wherever we are. And that is the goal, is to commune with the Holy God and come into His presence. And really, so many podcasts, so many people have talked about worship, talked about things. I could say a lot of things that would have already been said so many times in so many very profound ways. But I will say, people let preferences rob them of a deep, abiding worship experience. And I'm not just talking about a Sunday morning or a Saturday night or a midweek service or whenever you have your worship gathering, but just this whole idea of they want it to sound and feel and look and smell and everything just the way they want. And it's not achievable. It's not something that's attainable. And I think the enemy knows that. And I think the enemy tries to rob that deep, abiding kind of experience in God's presence, because he knows that, and he knows people are going to, unfortunately, fall into their fleshly desires, the thing that tickles their ears, and again, it's unattainable. It's something. So what's their first inkling is to push back on the worship pastor, push back on the worship leaders or the worship department with preferences. If you did this, if it sounded like this, if it was soft or loud or whatever it is, well, then I would then be able to get into God's presence. I would be able to worship freely. Mm-hmm. I would be able to see the Lord in those moments. And that is folly, I would say. So that would be mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much we idolize preference, and that becomes the stumbling block that stops us from worshiping the Lord. I'm just curious real quick. I'm sure we can dive into this a lot deeper. How do you speak the truth in love to those people that are, it's funny. We all have a bias towards our preference, right? And I'm sure these people might be well-intentioned sometimes, but some would just be annoying. But they think, oh, this is a brilliant idea. Pastor Randy has never thought about this twist that we could add to the worship experience in his 30 years of ministry, right? And they're like, I'm a genius, right? Yeah. How do you lovingly shepherd those people in those ways? Well,
you just said it, lovingly. you just have to love them where they're at. I'm typically never... I don't shy away from, a confrontational moment as long as it's healthy. I don't want it to get unhealthy or finger pointing or heightened or intense or anything. But I will challenge people lovingly that maybe I can think of an example, a good one. there was a moment when someone said, why are the worship leaders on the platform? Why do they need to be up there? Because then I look at them and I'm not really tuned into Jesus. Well, I said, well, Jesus lives in them. They've received Christ. They've surrendered their lives to him. And so what they're expressing is salt and light is coming out of them from the very Holy Spirit of God who resides in them. And so all they're doing is modeling what it feels like and what the experience is like for them to worship God. And that in and of itself is modeling and leading you to the Lord, leading you to Christ in that moment. And they'll be like, huh. Sometimes they'll be like, huh, okay. And then sometimes they'll be like, no, you don't understand. And then they'll go into it again, and you're like, and you're thinking, I do understand, but you just love them. You just love them the best you can. And I'm not always right. I'm not sitting there thinking I have all the answers, even though I've been in ministry a long time. I don't think I have all the answers. I'm still learning. I'm still growing. I'm still progressing with what God's called me to do to lead those experiences in those spaces, how to connect people best with the Lord. So
I love it. And that's a very humble and patient posture you exhibit, Pastor Randy. So shout out to you. Because I don't know if I would have the patience for that if I was in your role. God equips us differently,
you don't see
right?
me when I get home.
Yeah.
I'm just joking. I'm joking.
Yeah. All right, JP, some of the biggest conflicts you have to handle in your department.
Yeah, my thing I was going to touch on actually was also preferences. So as somebody who's over production, I oversee all things sound, light, the way the things look, how bright things are, how loud things are. So I get a lot of preferences coming my way. And I oftentimes, honestly, I don't really feel like sometimes people will come on strong, but I don't ever feel like it's an attack. I think people just want to they want people to listen to them, and they want to have their preference heard. And 99% of the time when I explain why something is the way it is, they're like, oh, okay. Like, for example, I had somebody come up. It wasn't even during a service. It was in between services. And this person came up and was like, hey, my phone says it's 95 decibels in here right now. And I was like, well, if it was 95 decibels, we wouldn't be able to have this conversation because it would be our services aren't even 95 decibels. It was, and I showed her the decibel meter we have. It's tuned specifically for our room, and so it was actually like 72, which is about how loud it is when somebody's giving a message. Just that, and when you explain that to them, they're like, oh, okay. Well, they just don't know the whys and all the we do actually take into consideration like volume. I think sometimes people are just like, well, they just want it loud. It's like, no. I mean, I don't want to lose my hearing either. This is my whole job, right? So yeah, I think people just want to be heard and they want to be loved through it. And she still did say, well, it's just a little bit loud in here. So it was a little less extreme, right? So she was like, it's still slightly. I was like, okay, I'll turn the house music down a little bit, right? So, and she was happy with that. So yeah.
Yeah, and I love with both your guys' responses. You guys gave an explanation. There's like a reason why we do what we do. It's not like, let's just throw people up on stage. Oh, let's make it this loud. No, there's thoughtful prayer and consideration to these decisions. And if you can share that heart with the person that might be complaining, and I put in quotations, they're not always complaining. They're just sharing their concerns. They can see, oh, you know what? Randy, JP, they have our best interests in mind. They're not just trying to tout their own horn and do what they want to do. So that's important. Switching gears, I'd love to hear from you guys. Man, like you said, Randy and Nate, you guys have been in the game longer than me and JP. I'd love to know what has been like your favorite part. Like what keeps you in the game for so long, right? This is a calling that we're in. It's not for the faint of heart. It's not for those who want to, get extravagantly wealthy and get the fame. I mean, if you're doing it for the right reasons, right? If you're doing ministry right, that shouldn't be the reasons, right? Yeah. So I'd love to hear, man, inspire us, inspire the listeners. Why should they go into church ministry if they feel the Lord calling them to that?
Oh man, well, same thing. We could be talking about this for days. I'll try to make it like quick and it's going to sound so
cliche.
Yeah, cliche. That's a good word. Yeah. I think for me, for what I've had the opportunity to do, and I'm grateful for it, is to see students come to know Christ. And then to see them, to be able to like baptize them, that is truly like something that I never want to take for granted. That's a big deal. Even leading students to Christ in general, like being there when they do it or whatever it may be. So I think that's a big, big thing. Then to see them discipled. And then I think, and James, I think we talked a little bit about this on a prior one, but like then to see those students disciple students, that's big. It makes you kind of look back as like, oh, you're a proud dad, you're a proud father, like seeing like your kids. And then just the joy of being a pastor and what we do, it's kind of like the old, like, Mary and Barry, not that we want to look forward to funerals, but being there on people's best day, their wedding, being able to be a part of a wedding. I've had the awesome opportunity to actually be a part of 2 of Randy's daughters' weddings, to be the one to marry them, and lead that service, which is just humbled and honored to be a part of that. That means so much. And then the other side of that is something I wouldn't say that I enjoy, but the fact to be there during a funeral. Randy does a lot more of this than even me. But that to be there with a family during their really probably, most crucial time in their life, the grieving and everything, and to be there to try to honor that person and celebrate that person's life, but also to love that family. And so for me, it's just to love. And I think we talk a lot about this, and this is a whole nother podcast, right? And but just shepherding, just being a pastor and shepherding people, if it's on the best day or their worst day and anything in between, to try to do life with them and love them, and most of all, give them Jesus, but give them God's word. Here's how we can walk alongside of you. Man, to me, there's nothing better. Yeah, and we know, all of us around this table know this, and you've mentioned it, Randy's been doing it longer than all of us, but that doesn't mean, and like you said, inspire us. Like, honestly, all those can be really hard. I mean, funerals are some of the toughest, but even a wedding can be, but like, all that can be tough and can be a challenge. But like, man, at the end of the day, you look back and like, wow, God, you trusted me enough. You trusted me enough to be in that moment with those people. And you may walk with those people for years, or it may just be a short time. But that right there to me is just, it's a joy, man. It's a joy. So we could talk for days about it, but I'll let Randy and JP and you speak into it too.
Well, man, that was really good.
Thanks.
When you were talking about shepherding, Nate, I'm kind of thinking about, if God has called someone that might be listening, or if you sense you have a call to full-time ministry, whether it's in a church or organization or whatever, mission field, whatever, man, it typically coincides with you enjoying being around people.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't enjoy being around people, I'm not saying that God wouldn't call you to do that. I'm just saying that will be something you're going to have to work through with the Lord. You're going to have to kind of take that journey to kind of figure that out and figure out what that is, because ministry is people.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
We're in the people business.
That's
right?
it.
Yeah.
That's it. I know what I can say what it's not for me. Because I feel like going into ministry and being in ministry is boiled down to one question, but it's definitely not because I feel like I can sing or play an instrument or talk really well, articulate myself really well, communicate well, whatever. It's because God called me to it. And listen, I resisted it for a long time, and I think probably for years. And I didn't pick up on it. I didn't discern it. I didn't understand what was happening. I can look back now, I can reflect and go, oh man, that's what was happening. But God called me, and it wasn't until I was 30 years old until I went into full-time ministry. And by then, just a lot of life experience, and I had to work through a lot of regret too, of like, oh man, so many years wasted. But the Lord's even healed me about some of that too, because those weren't wasted years. Those were years where I was ministering to people and I didn't even realize it. I didn't even know it. You know what I mean? So yeah, it boils down to one question. That peace that passes all understanding, the peace that only Jesus can bring you, if you sense that and you're prompted in your spirit that you might be called into full-time ministry, pray about that. Look into that. Seek out spiritual leaders, pastors that are in your life that can help you discern that and help you walk through that, because that's the only question you have to answer. And then after that, there's a whole nother set of questions, but they're more about where, how, with who, all that. And God even does that. He orders our steps and we just walk in them. So
That's good.
yeah.
Oh man, yeah, I have just over the past, since I've been in the leadership role, being able to watch other people grow, not just in their skill set with technology, but also growing in their passion for it, but also their passion for the ministry aspect of it. It's quite amazing, especially in tech. It's a very supportive position. It has to be a very selfless position. I'm not saying, oh, look how selfless I am. But you have to have.
Yeah, you're doing the opposite.
Yeah. But you have to have that mindset that this is not about me at all, because it is all about serving other people and making sure that other people's ministries are effective and that they're smooth and that they go well. But yeah, just watching the team grow, not just in number. I mean, we've grown in number, but we've grown. I think there's just been a lot of maturing, and it's really cool to watch. I even see one of our guys. He's a teacher, and he's telling me about these emails he has to send to all of his families at the end of the month, and just to talk about what they learned, their kids are learning in school and stuff. And then he said, "I think I'm gonna start turning that into kind of like a Devo kind of a thing." And just kind of and as an outreach to the parents. So it's not just a bullet pointed list of here what our kids learn and stuff, but it's just seeing that stuff. Oh, it's just, I mean, I almost cried when he's telling me that, just because I think it's so cool just to see people grow and they're ministry minded. It's awesome. Yeah.
That's so good. A common thread between all three of you guys has shared, and I'll share a little bit as well. Just the people business piece is so important. I remember in college when I was studying my ministry degree, thinking like, what am I going to do with this? And I said, okay, regardless of what I'm doing, regardless of whatever ministerial job I do, it's all about relationships. It is hinged on relationships. Yep. Your success in ministry is dependent on your ability to make relationships with people. And I just man, God, you're going to have to help me with this, because I'm naturally not a big relationship guy, at least at that time. And I'm like, I swear, I think the Lord changed me in that way. I'm like, now I'm so inclined and I want to know people. I'm not perfect at it per se. That's why spiritual giftings are like giftings that weren't there beforehand, right? According to the test, I have the gift of shepherding, and I know beforehand that was definitely not a gifting. So the Lord can instill what you need in order to do what He has called you to do, right? He's not going to call you to something that you're not going to be prepared for, spiritually speaking. I believe that, whether you see it in your life or not. And I know for me, man, just working with the youth ministry, but the young adult ministry specifically, I just remember, man, this past year, I haven't been doing it for too long, just, teaching the group of 30 young adults. And I look up, I'm not very good at, I keep my eyes open when I teach. I'm either like squinting or looking up and down. It's something I'm working on. But I remember I actually looked out in the crowd, and I saw them writing things down. And I'm just like, oh God, you got to help me here. They're writing down what I'm saying. Like, just the way I felt. Like, I'm just like, apparently they think what I'm saying is important enough to write down. This is like, wow, God, let me not lose this feeling. Like, I'm not just spitting out words here. I'm hopefully sharing truth that they're going to write down and, hold dear to their heart and hopefully apply. So that was just humbling to me. And then every time a young adult comes up and asks a question after the message, just like, oh, what do you think about this? And I'm just humbled. I'm like, who am I? I'm no prophet. I'm no like superstar. I'm not an expert in like anything, right? And just the grace. It's all just the grace that God has given me, right? So it's just it's comforting. It's rewarding. It's like, man, God, you didn't have to use me, but you chose to. Yeah. So I'm just gonna do my best with the giftings you've given me and be a good steward of it. So
amen.
Yep.
Yeah. with that being said, our time is short, unfortunately, and we
Goes
could go on
quick.
for days. And there's so much.
These guys got to get their naps in.
Yeah. It's not time. Not time. We usually take it in the tech booth.
Yeah,
And,
the tech booth.
so, yeah.
What do you thought, a bathroom break?
Yeah.
I timed it between my 3 naps a day.
Yeah.
So I'm good.
There you go.
God.
But like we could talk about so many other things. But any closing thoughts in relation to just the things we've talked about now, and then we'll wrap this episode up. Any closing thoughts from any of you three?
Well, I think one thing that's important is kind of like something that James, we appreciate what you do and bringing us on. And I think we've said this in other ways and probably even in other podcasts. But I think Randy made a little bit of a challenge out there to some people maybe that are praying or going through or looking at ministry. And it's important to not do it alone.
Yeah.
And what we have is something special. I'm grateful for all the men around this table. But that would be my last little thing is if maybe you're even in ministry right now, man, find somebody, find something. Don't be that Lone Ranger. And obviously that's a common theme that I say a lot, and actually will be our theme next year, even for our Summer Olympics.
Shout out to Summer Olympics
Yeah,
2025.
yeah, shout out to that. But so that's important, and I'm thankful for this group, and it just means a lot. But that's a key thing to not do ministry alone. It's important.
That's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge. I would just say, as you see people go to the altar during worship and lives changed and people getting baptized and salvations happening and all those kinds of just wonderful things that happen all around us in ministry. And maybe for some of you, maybe not that frequently, but for those incredible moments, even those aren't the moments and aren't the reasons why we're in ministry, why we do ministry. We do it because the Lord calls us to and asks us to. Clearly in Scripture, He calls, whether we're full-time vocational ministers or not, whether we go to get ordained or get our masters or whatever it may be, He wants us to partner with Him to sow seeds, and He makes them grow. And so don't even get locked into the idea that those moments are why I do this or why I serve or why I serve the Lord with this. It's not. It's because He asked you to and you responded. That's important. Yeah.
I would say, too, ministry is not always a church thing. You don't have to work at a church to be in ministry. Just like Randy was saying, he was ministering to people. He didn't even realize it, right? So it's important to remember people are watching you, and it's very important to just remember to always be Jesus to people, because you never know whose life's being changed through you, and you don't even realize it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Love it. If you're a child of God, we're all kind of ministers to one degree or another. Minister in whatever sphere of influence you have, and be faithful to it. God is going to equip you. God is going to help you. He's not just going to leave you out to dry. And do it with people like we was shared. Find some Barnabases in your life, some Pauls in your life, and don't do this ministry alone. So thank you guys for coming on Thrive and Dive. Big shout out to
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Hope to have you guys on again sometime in the future, God willing.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Well, guys, hope you've enjoyed this conversation. This is Thrive and Dive, thriving in life as we dive into deeper conversations. Have a great rest of your day.